Vikki Thorn, welcome to Australian Musician.
Oh, glad to be here. Hi.
Thornbird, your debut solo album is coming out on March 11. How long has the debut album been in the planning? Have you always wanted to make a solo album?
This album has been, I can verify this from a journal entry I found 20 years ago that I had clandestine plans to make a solo album, but it took that long to get around to it. It took a pandemic actually to get around to it.
Yeah. So how far back do some of these songs go?
The songs that made it to the album were actually written in the last 2 years in Australia. A couple of them probably in the last 5 years when I was in Utah. I started to write a lot of tunes over there. But landing in Australia and just with everything that happened in the world, I think a lot of people, creative types, turned inward and started writing about it all. And about half of the album was made up of songs written here in Australia.
Yeah, as you said, you spent a lot of time in Utah in the States. You now live in Albany, Western Australia. What is it about you and remote places?
Me and remote places. I do have to correct you. It is Albany, Western Australia. I know you're from the East Coast. Oh, look, why wouldn't you live in a remote place? It's absolutely stunning to wake up with the birds and the trees every morning. It's just the way I want to raise my children. It's the way I feel connection to a place, if I can have that space. And probably because sometimes I'm a little crazy in my head and I just like quiet and air and sunlight. But yeah, it certainly helps with getting creative, being a songwriter and playing music. See, Donna lives up in the city. My sister and we sit out on the porch sometimes and play music, and people across the fence will say, "Oh, that sounds nice," or "Shut up." I like having the freedom of people not hearing everything.
So, Vikki, did you have a sonic vision for the album as a whole, or was it more a matter of dealing with it song by song?
With this collection of songs, we took it one by one, really. I'm not much of a visionary artist when it comes to an end goal. I know through the process I start to understand what I like and don't like. It's very frustrating, actually. But Dan Carroll, the producer, really helped me bring that together sonically, and in terms of placing instrumentation and players together to sort of weave a thread sonically through it. But I think the album's more just vignettes of my experiences and songs over the last 5 years, really.
Yeah. I believe you almost stumbled across the band, the guys that play on this album. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I was down here in Albany and I decided to go to the pub midweek, which I never do on a school night. I don't know why I needed to get out of the house that night. And these guys were playing in the corner and it was just sounded so good, live music. It was sort of this really dirty folk blues, and they were just not paying attention to anyone, swaying around with their eyes closed. And I was completely drawn in. I thought, these guys are playing so well together. Yeah, I went away thinking, I'd like that sort of sound on my song. So I got in touch with them, and lucky for me, they were really keen. And that's Luke Dux, Todd Pickett, and Ben Franz, who plays with the Waifs. I brought him in on it too.
Yeah, Ben's bass on the album is really noticeable. It's deep and boomy, and it gives the songs a full body. Was that a deliberate thing, or is that just Ben being Ben?
Bass as a bass should be, deep and boomy, I think. Yeah. When he picks up the upright it's really nice to mic those upright songs so you get the sound of the wood of that instrument on a double bass, and I enjoy that sound on a couple of my songs. Ben also plays a lot of pedal steel on the album, which I think is his instrument of choice secretly. So we had him guest on pedal steel a lot, and he's really good. But yeah, he certainly has a particular sound as a bass player. I think Dan was the producer, was the one that sort of placed it, because it can be such a great driving force in a song, particularly on the upright, you know, when they're slapping it. I love that sound.
Yeah. Is there a track?
I'll pass it on. Thanks for mentioning
it. Is there a track on the album which is closer to your heart than others?
The most personal track is Hell's Backbone, which was written about the place I lived in Utah, which was on the edge of a wilderness area. We had a little farm on the edge of 1 million acres. And the area is Hell's Backbone in Death Hollow. How's that for an address? And it was an incredible place. It really had a profound impact on me, and I'm pleased with that song. It's close to my heart because the way that place made me feel, I felt like that was captured in that song. You know, the sense of spaciousness with the pedal steel and harmonica, and it's just pretty much straight from the heart, you know.
Yeah, the track Rough Patch is a great song to end the album with. The album sort of fades out with that song. Was the track order important to you?
Rough Patch, yeah, it was like the bookend to a pretty shitty year, you know. So it's a fairly dark tune, and I debated whether to include it at all. But musically, the way the drums and piano and the way it builds sonically, I loved so much. Like, it was my favorite musical moment in the studio was that song. And yeah, finishing, you know, the rest of my album is sort of pretty lighthearted. So, but I felt like, okay, let's just end this thing how my year ended. It was it was sort of a heavy year, so it made sense to me.
Yeah. The album was recorded mostly live, which must be really helpful when you're arranging for the live shows. There's not too much working out to do. Are there any songs in particular that are really coming up well live?
Yeah, all the things is a really feel good. You know, I love to dance and move on stage, so that's a good one, and I can get people to sing along. That was something I wanted in my set live. I just love those sing along songs. So that one's my favorite one to play. And there's a song on there, Let Her Go, which is sort of like bit of a rock song. Well, that's funny. I played it to a guy who's a rock and roll drummer, and I said, look, I've written a rock song. He goes, oh yeah, country, I like it. So my interpretation of rock is quite different, apparently. But that's fun for me to play because it's sort of a pretty high energy from start to finish with blistering electric guitar solo, and yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. Tell me about the main guitar you use, and is there a story behind how you acquired it?
There is, actually. Thank you for asking. I'll try and keep it short because it spans over a few years. But I've got this 1963 Epiphone Texan that's just beautifully beat up. I don't know where you know who had it before me. I wish I could know the stories it could tell. I picked it up in a vintage guitar store in Salt Lake City. And the story behind the guitar is that my husband, on our first date, took me to this vintage guitar store and we just looked around. It's called the Great Salt Lake Guitar Company. And you have to make an appointment to get in there because the guys are a little bit grumpy, these brothers. You got to know someone to get in there. Anyway, he took me in there and it was just gorgeous. So many fantastic guitars. And I took a photo of a row of vintage guitars. Anyway, about 3 years later, we went back in there and I ended up finding this Epiphone Texan, falling in love with it, and I bought it. And then a few years after that, when I came across the original photo I'd taken, that Epiphone Texan is the first guitar in the picture. So I'd sort of taken a photo of my own guitar 3 years before I bought it. I love that guitar. It's just very woody. You know, I can't tour with it much anymore because it's so beat up, but it's my songwriting guitar.
Yeah. Apart from going out with your own band and playing your own songs, the Waifs are playing Blues Fest at Easter. You've played Blues Fest before. When you think about Blues Fest, what comes to mind?
Oh, just sweaty, hot, tense, and incredible music. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it because it's been postponed a few times, as everybody knows. Yeah, I mean, it's just incredible energy at Blues Fest. We've had some great experiences with other artists there. I remember backstage, Taj Mahal playing banjo to my son and singing a song to him. I think Jackson Brown once changed a guitar string of Donna's. She sort of broke a string and just held her guitar out to whoever was standing on the side of the stage, and Jackson Brown walked up and restrung her guitar for her. So yeah, lots of good stories there, Byron.
Yeah, I think Donna ran into someone pretty famous at the bakery there in Byron too, didn't she?
It's her story. I keep telling it, but yeah, that was hilarious. She was outside the bakery at 1 a.m. eating her pie, and then this limo rocked up, and the window went down, and James Brown is sitting there. I think she actually said something to him, but you'd have to ask her. But I just love that image of James Brown buying a vanilla slice at the Byron Bay all-night bakery.
Something that you're involved in last year was the AFL Grand Final. Are you a footy fan, and how was that experience?
That was amazing. You know, there wasn't a lot of circumstances that I could imagine that I would have been doing that last year, asked to do that in front of 70,000 people, literally the biggest crowd I've ever played or sang in front of in my career. And it was in an incredible energy. You know, it's one thing to be on the side of those arenas, but to be in the center and the focal point of that energy is a palpable thing. I was quite emotional, and I have a lot of respect for the footy players who play under such intense scrutiny. I guess you get good at blocking it out, but yeah, it was fun. I loved it. I thought, ooh, this is fun. I could get used to this.
Yeah. So what's the grand plan for Thornbird?
Oh, no grand plan. I'm not a grand planner myself. I make albums like I live my life one day at a time, one song at a time. Yeah, I guess, you know, to go out and tour and play gigs with a cracking band is a lot of fun. So that to me at this point is the grand plan. I'm still writing. I'm writing an album with my partner here, and you know, I'd love to just keep putting out albums we make at home and of songs we love. But the exciting part for me is just getting out and touring and playing gigs, because that's what I love to do.
Well, Vikki, Thornbird, your debut solo album is out March 11, and thanks for chatting with us.
Thank you so much, Greg.